Counting the votes in an election is an important process that takes time. Every vote is counted by election officials by hand. Getting the results right is our priority. Here's a closer look at how votes are counted in elections. Every ballot paper completed at an election is placed into a sealed ballot box ready for counting. When election day is over at 6 p.m, the vote count can begin. The election night count is called the preliminary count. Election officials count the votes in counting centres. Scrutineers represent candidates and can be present to observe during any vote count. They will be clearly identifiable. Election officials count all available votes, including election day votes, mobile polling votes, early voting centre votes, postal votes, telephone votes. First, ballot papers are unfolded, sorted and placed into separate piles for each candidate. Each ballot paper is examined to make sure it is formal or filled out correctly. When this is done, the number of first preference votes for each candidate is tallied, then checked against the number of ballot papers issued and updated progressively on the ECQ website. For some elections, a second count is undertaken on election night. This is called the indicative count. The indicative count means preferences are allocated to the two candidates likely to receive the most first preference votes. Preferences on the remaining ballot papers are then allocated to these two candidates. After the preliminary count and indicative count, if conducted, are completed, there is no further counting on election night. The ballot papers are secured overnight and election officials will return the following day to do the official count. This is observed by the scrutineers. The official count begins on the day immediately after election day. Preliminary and official counts will continue for postal votes as they are received. Again, the number for each candidate is tallied and updated progressively on the ECQ website. The final stage of counting for optional preferential or full preferential elections is the distribution of preferences. Preferences are counted the days following election day when it is clear which candidates have received the lowest number of first preference votes. Preferences are only counted when the order of candidates is clear, which may be after the deadline for return of postal votes. Preferences are distributed when all votes have been received, counted and recorded. First, the candidate with the lowest number of votes is excluded from the count. Then, the next highest preference on the ballot papers for that candidate are distributed to the other remaining candidates. This process is repeated until there are only two candidates remaining in the count and one has a majority. When the outcome is certain, a declaration can be made. In a first-past-the-post election, all first preferences are counted and no distributions of preferences apply. The result is declared when no other outcome is mathematically possible. We must allow up to 10 days for postal votes to be received for counting by law. The ECQ will declare the results on its website to say which candidates have been elected. We will also advise all candidates directly, and if it is a local government election, we'll advise the relevant council. Integrity is at the heart of everything we do, including counting the votes. Authorised by the Electoral Commission of Queensland.